Yes, welcome everyone to this year's VIA workshop. So the workshop is about why and how to improve gender balance at all stages of the career paths in informatics. So Christina, if you go to the next one. So firstly, a few rules. So unfortunately, we cannot meet physically this year. It was so nice last year and so lively and intensive. I hope that we will manage at least to come close to that last year, but we have to live with the situation as it is. So firstly, please, in your Zoom, add your full name. This you can do if you go to participants and go to your own name. Then on the right, you have options, and then you can choose renaming. So please add your full name and mute your microphone when you are not speaking, such that we don't have disturbing noises at the back. If you want to speak, then you can raise your hands or you can write in the chat. So people from Informatics Europe will check these. Perhaps you will not see it immediately, but because we also do not see all videos at the same time, just raising hand is perhaps goes under, so we don't recognize. So please give a signal if you want to talk. And it is important to talk because we want to exchange, we want to discuss here. So please be active. Okay, Christina, so this is our program. We start now with a welcome and setting the objectives, and then we will have different sessions. The first two about strategy, communication, policy, and then we have 3 sessions for different career stages. So I think you have seen it's already on the website also, and in the last session we would like to discuss about cooperation with industry and society. I would like to say a few words to the roots of this workshop. So first, in Informatics Europe, which you probably all already know, a working group has been established in 2012, so already 8 years ago, about women in informatics research and education. And the working group made really nice things. They established the Minerva Informatics Equality Award for institutions, universities making impactful activities and measures locally, that we make these activities more visible. And then other things that happened in this working group is a best practices booklet. And we try to support the networking of the European actors and a bit, well, connect these. And then, if you go to the next slide, in 2018, there had been the idea, because we wanted to set up a European network of actors, that we have some platforms to communicate, to exchange, to connect. And for that, we made a working session. This was a like half-day working session and the other working sessions, and it was extremely successful. And we decided to continue in the next year, in 2019. Christina, if you continue, and this was already a workshop. It was not only a working session, but a workshop. And you see here the aims that has been defined for 2019 to increase the visibility of European VIA-related activities, so your activities, to offer a place for exchange, developing best practices, and strengthen you and strengthen the network, and just strengthen also the total impact in this area. And in these 2 workshops, in 2018 and 2019, we collected best practice tips. And also from that, we have seen the sources of the problems get a bit more clear. And then we decided with our resources, we cannot manage to have the impact that we wish to have. And for that, if you go to the next slide, Christina, in this VIA workshop, we changed a bit the direction. It is still about connecting, exchanging, but also we moved towards the strategical plan. So we would like to discuss with you in this workshop, of course, also what is successful, and further collect best practices with the aim that at the end we will develop, like we started already, best practice recommendations and recommendations how to do things and what to do and how to plan for the future in the long term. And these activities will be in a larger European context continued in a cost action, which we applied last year and which has been accepted and just started this month, a European action. And this workshop from next year on will become part of this action. And Letizia, I give you the word. You will report now about the action, and in the aims, it is connected also to this workshop. You need to unmute, Letizia.
Yes, I was trying to do two things at the same time. So, Erika, thank you very much for your introduction. And above all, thank you for suggesting that I should continue the excellent work that you and Linda Hartman and Jane Hillstone has done before me. And so I started in January, and we started, in fact, before with you and Christina in the summer of 2019. We wrote this application for a cost action. We didn't know much about what a cost action is, at least I didn't know, but we were lucky. We could build on the very good work that has been done in the wire from before. So we get very good scores, and this application went through at the first time. And the cost action is called European Network for Gender Balance in Informatics. And most of you who are here in this meeting were present last week when we had our start of the cost action. It was a beautiful meeting, but also for me a bit worrying that we have really a lot to do, and we have a very ambitious goal to achieve, but we have 4 years, and we have a network of very resourceful people. So the challenge of the cost action, as it is written in our application, that you can find in the chat that Informatics Europe, as we have put an URL in the chat, and if you access that URL, you find all the information about the cost action, because what is different from a cost action from other European projects, that here you find everything. So all the things we have been writing in the application is available for you and for the rest of the world. So our challenge to improve gender balance in informatics at all levels, from undergraduate and graduate studies to participation and leadership in academia and industry, through the creation of an European network of colleagues working on the forefront of the efforts for gender balance in their countries and research communities. So what we are doing in our countries, in our groups, we are trying to bring to the table so that we will learn from each other, and we will try to make some best practices of what works in the country, so that we lift up ourselves. We don't work anymore at our research group level or at school level, but we work at a European level. And it's easy to say, it's not, I am not sure how we will come there, but this is the goal. We have some deliverables that we have promised to the cost office that we will deliver. And some of these things we were smart enough to promise something that we are already doing. So we are already doing this workshop. We think that is very successful. It has a good, people is signing for this workshop, participating. So the workshop will become part of the deliverable of the network. We are already doing some booklets. If you go on the homepage, on the web page of our WIRE group, you will find out that we made a booklet for department heads about how to employ female professors and staff in the departments. Now we will have to do several booklets about how to recruit from the school to the university, about how to promote more women from one level to the other one. And so all our deliverables are well described in the Memorandum of Understanding. And now we have started to work next week to find out who is responsible to do what. And this workshop, we have to see it as also as a working session, so that we will progress toward our goal in the cost action. And what I'm saying now, it's also a good introduction to the first session that will be about strategy, communication, and policy. We have to become more aware. We have to learn how to be strategic, how to communicate in a strategic way to our stakeholders. We have to learn who our stakeholders are. So now I am putting the ground for session 1, but also for the other sessions, because as you can see in this picture, that is the map of our work. If we start from the bottom, at the bottom there is dissemination and strategy. We have to learn how to speak to the world and how to listen to the world. Why are we here? Who are our stakeholders? Who are the people who are interested in our work? So we have to we have an activity that is cooperation with industry and society, and we have these 3 activities: the pipeline from school to university, through university to the PhD, and from PhD to professors. We have a management committee structure. We have members from all cost countries. We have 37 countries involved. Our cost officer last time told us that it was the largest management committee meeting he has never managed. So yeah, this puts some expectations on us. And who are we? I will be the chair of the action. Christina is the vice chair, and Informatics Europe is the grant holder. And so we have 9, for the time being, work package group leaders that will be quite the same people who will lead the sessions that we will have later today. So I will not read now all the names, because you will meet all these people in a while, and you can see that we have tried to make a puzzle so that both young people and less young people, and inclusiveness target country and female and male are represented in our core group, that is the group of the leaders. So we have a role that is very important, that is the science communication manager, the short-term scientific mission coordinator, and the ITC conference grant and training schools coordinator. All these people are in the meeting now, so feel free to send a message to them if you have a question to them, or send a message in the chat. I am not afraid of having too much participation. We should always aim of as much as possible interaction. And yes, so this was my message, and I am a bit later, but I can now introduce session 1, and I want first to introduce the other chair of session 1, who is Professor Dana Petku. Maybe you want to unmute, Dana, and present.
Yes, sure. Hello, good afternoon. I'm happy to be with you.
Nice.
Letizia, can you stop sharing the screen? Then I can share the slides of Mina while you talk.
Yes,
Okay.
I can. And then I can start introducing Dana, and then I would like to give the word to you, not Dana, sorry, Mina. If you and me, Dana, can moderate this session together. So from now on, I will first present Mina, and then the only role that I will have is the very nasty one of taking the time, because each one who has been promised to talk deserve their slot. So I will try to take the time, and I really encourage all the session leaders to be careful about the time. But now I have the pleasure to present Mina Stareva. She is the head of the sector for gender equality in DG, Research and Innovation in the European Commission. Prior to that, she has been working on developing the European Research Area Policy and International Cooperation. She holds a bachelor degree in law from Robert Schuman University in Strasbourg and a Master of Arts degree in Political Sciences from the College of Europe. So Mina, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Letizia and Dana and Christina. So thank you very much for having me here, and I'm extremely happy to see also so many participants. So good afternoon to all. I will start by congratulating you with the very successful cost action. I think this is a great achievement, and clearly it shows the impact and continuity of what you've been doing in the last year. So I think this is already a very good sign for success. And from our side, we would be very interested to know more about the work you would be doing, and of course receiving some concrete policy recommendations out of the action. So I'm here to actually present, but also engage in a discussion with you on what do we do at the European Commission to support gender equality in informatics and research and innovation broadly. And if we move to the next slide, I would say that I'm very happy to be here with you, not only because we all share the same objective towards gender balance and better equality in informatics, but also because more than ever, gender equality is high on the political agenda in the European Commission. For the first time ever, we have a commissioner for equality, which is really a huge step forward. Commissioner Helena Dalli, responsible for actually the efficient and effective mainstream of equality in all Commission policies and funding programs. We also have, of course, the president of the Commission, not only being a woman, but being firmly committed to gender equality in the Commission and outside in all of our actions. And last but not least, we have Maria Gabriel, Commissioner for Research, Innovation and Education, but also I think that most of you know also her commitment to equality since her previous mandate, where actually she was responsible for the digital dossier, and she did quite a lot of new initiatives in terms of supporting more women in digital. So if we go to the next slide, one could see that already within the first 100 days of its mandate, the European Commission came with a new gender equality strategy for the European Union, which I would say announces the color and also already the upgraded ambition towards gender equality in Europe. And here I would refer to research and innovation, as this strategy already puts forward some hints towards the actions we would support in Horizon Europe. It's a bit dark here in my room, apologies for this. So actually the strategy already announced put very clearly that closing the gender gap in ICT and STEM-related fields is one of the European Commission's highest priority. It announced some concrete activities to be implemented under Horizon Europe, such as supporting a Europe-wide culture of change through the implementation of gender equality plans, where actually the gender equality plans, having a gender equality plan becomes an eligibility criteria for public entities in Horizon Europe. We also actually in Horizon Europe, we want to continue to support women innovators, women entrepreneurs, women scientists through targeted measures under the European Innovation Council, starting already with a pilot this year. And I would present this a little bit in detail later on. With Horizon Europe, we would also aim to understand better the inequalities and the biases that exist. And we would actually support intersectional research and gendered studies. And we would also look into actually how to debunk the gender stereotypes in all of the socioeconomic and political domains. So this is clearly a step change from what exists currently in Horizon 2020. And I know that you are very familiar with Horizon 2020, where for the first time, gender equality has been introduced as an operational objective, and where we have actually managed to improve somehow the gender balance in Horizon Europe, in Horizon 2020, but not sufficiently at all. So this is why, if we go to the next slide, which is just, we can quickly pass through this one, actually we came up with a new European Research Area communication, a new framework for our policy in research and innovation, adopted last September, where gender equality is very high on the agenda, is one of the priorities, which do acknowledge what has been done so far with member states, with stakeholders in setting in place gender equality plans and working towards institutional change, but which is also very clear on the fact that we are not yet there, and that if we continue at this pace, I mean, progress is too slow, uneven across countries. There are still persisting structural barriers and inequalities across countries. As we can see later on, women occupy only 24% of the top academic positions. The imbalances are much more striking in the areas of STEM-related fields, and women represent less than 10% of patent holders in Europe. So is this what we want for Europe? No. So definitely there is also growing awareness on the need to address gender-based violence and sexual harassment, which unfortunately happens also in universities and academic environment. There is a need to discuss something that it's probably not so much on the agenda of today, but which is very important, namely to actually integrate sex and gender analysis into research and innovation, into the content of our innovation, so that we actually increase the excellence associated relevance of the final outputs. And with the new European Research Area communication and action on gender equality, what we want is to go beyond what we have, building on the momentum, building on the visibility for equality in the Commission, on the gender equality strategy, but also on what we hear from all the corners in Europe, which is we need more. We are definitely not there. So what we want to do is that we want to promote an inclusive gender equality approach. So to open up at 3 different levels. And these 3 different levels is, one is actually linked to opening up our approach to gender equality to actually embrace other inequalities. So what we call an intersectionality, and how do we actually make sure that we do consider social determinants such as race, socioeconomic inequality, sexual orientation, or disability within the strategies that we support and promote. We do also want to open up our work and collaboration with stakeholders to all research and innovation actors in Europe and beyond, meaning innovators and business. And we also want to make sure that we have an inclusive geographical approach, as often widening countries, and so Eastern European countries are not very much present in our work, in our committees, in our projects. So we want to make sure that actually no one is left behind. Having said that, if you go to the next slide, actually I have put 3 slides. The next one is referring to actually the enormous amount of data that we actually generate through the She Figures edition every 3 years, which has now become, let's say, the landmark for monitoring of the state of gender equality in research and innovation. The next edition is foreseen for 2021, and it's a very important tool for policy making. So looking at the next slide, I briefly mentioned this. So what we can see in all research and innovation fields combined is that while we have more or less a gender balance at the level of PhD graduates, the more we go up in the scientific ladder and the career progression, the more actually women are underrepresented, with 22% of women being actually heads of higher education institutions. This is the picture for research and innovation, all fields combined. When you go to the next slide, actually the numbers are even more striking. One could easily see that here we have actually 39% of graduates in science and engineering matters. And when we go up to the scientific career ladder, we actually have only 15% of grade A researchers in Europe being women. So this, of course, is also reflected in the participation in Horizon 2020 on the next slide, where if you look into the ICT area, so we would see that so far in Horizon 2020, we have less than 20% of projects coordinated by women. For your reference, at all disciplines combined, we are about a 29 or 30, which is not ideal neither. And we have 36% of women researchers, no, apologies, 25% of women researchers involved in ICT-related projects, while overall, when we look into Horizon 2020 for all disciplines, we are at about 40%, where we could say, okay, we are close to gender balance there, but in the areas of informatics, we are not there. So this is why actually our commissioner, and also I'm very happy my director general came up in discussions with many of you and stakeholders with the idea we need to change our approach. So if you go to the next slide, what do we do precisely? Is that actually we build on the achievements, we build on what we have generated in terms of support and work with member states, with research organizations, with research funders to actually promote an institutional change approach, so which is a complex, and on the next slide, you can see a coherent approach targeting so far mainly universities, research organizations, research funders, and trying to actually implement a set of measures to remove gender inequalities at institutional level. So this is, of course, the evolution from the previous approach, which was let's fix the women and this is how we are going to have a gender equality. Now we actually speak about fixing the system and fixing the knowledge to make sure that everyone is on board, and then gender equality is not a women issue. And through gender equality plans, we also look to generate lasting effects. So we look into sustainability. So the next slide, it's a colorful slide where you would see the different projects that we have been funding in the past 7 years. So the first line with the green projects and the red indication are the gender equality plans project. They all aim to promote more women in STEM sciences, but some of them have actually very specific objective to promote more women in informatics. I'm pretty sure that some of you, if not many of you, have been involved in one or another of those projects, such as the Equalist project we just ended last year, and that has actually generated very useful toolbox and guidelines on how to set up a gender equality plan within an ICT organization. So all of these best practices, guidelines, and tools, we actually upload them on the Gear tool. This is what you would see on the right of the screen. It's the Gender Equality in Academia and Research tool, hosted by the European Institute for Gender Equality, which is by the moment we speak being updated to include the latest projects and the latest best practices generated from the projects. including Equalist and also GECO practices, some ICT related projects. And actually, I would say that once you have also recommendations stemming also from your cost action, this would be a very appropriate place also to introduce some of the outputs as a good practice reference that can actually serve also other institutions. So on the next slide, here I would like to bring your attention to the fact that building on the projects, building on the expertise that is out there, building on the community of practitioners that we have supported, but that are also actually, that one could also see in the different countries, we have actually come up with what we call the building blocks of a gender equality plan, which is to be considered as the minimum standards, the minimum elements of what a gender equality plan should be ahead of Horizon Europe. And I would really say that these are very basic for process-related steps to make sure that actually you have a public document which is endorsed by the management, to make sure that you have some dedicated, be it financial or human resources related, to actually ensure a process of monitoring and data collection which builds on sex and gender disaggregated data, and also to actually introduce some concrete institution-specific actions to build capacity, to raise awareness, to actually target some specific issues that are identified as weak issues, as weaknesses at institutional level, and that need to be addressed. So I say these are basic. There is quite a lot of resistances across member states on accepting even those very basic requirements. So with our gender equality plans approach, on the next slide, we have also worked towards suggesting some content-related areas to be addressed within a gender equality plan. They also are quite straightforward, of course, such as introducing measures to address work-life balance, or to support gender balance in decision-making and leadership within institutions, to actually address sexual harassment and gender-based violence, and of course also to think about introducing a gender perspective in the research content and training within an institution. We have discussed those at several times, but actually at our last and second edition of the European Research and Innovation Days in September, we had a dedicated session on the gender equality plans and our approach towards Horizon Europe, where our Director General actually announced the approach, and we also collected feedback from different participants. And we actually were quite lucky with the online format because we had much more than expected. So we have collected very useful feedback on what is a gender equality plan, but also what else is needed by member states, by institutions, and by the European Commission to make sure that these are actually efficient strategies, long-lasting strategies, impactful strategies, that these are not ticking box exercises just to actually serve as an eligibility tool, as an entry point to Horizon Europe. So I have actually introduced the link to the session because it's on YouTube on our channel for research and innovation. So you can also, if interested, you can have a look at this session, or at least in the beginning with the announcement of these measures. So the next slide would actually, the next one would actually provide you a broader picture of Horizon Europe. It's the structure of Horizon Europe. I'm pretty sure by the time we speak, you are very much familiar with this. So Horizon Europe will continue to fund the gender equality structural and policy actions under the strengthening the European research area pillar, which are these are actions to support the implementation of the European research area. What is a big novelty in Horizon Europe, or at least a change towards the approach in Horizon 2020, is that in line with the gender equality strategy, the integration of gender and sex and gender analysis into the research content, hence in the topics and the call for proposals, is considered by default. This means that unless the topic specifies otherwise, all the applicants would need to introduce a reflection on a sex and gender perspective within this topic. So here we really changed the burden of proof. So far we have asked applicants to tell us whether they think that there should be a gender element. Now it's the other way around. We actually would like to make sure that gender is really mainstreamed across all Horizon Europe pillars. So also of interest in terms of specific gender-related research, which is also linked to gender biases, intersectionality. This would be funded in Pillar 2 under Cluster 2, Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Societies. And I'm pretty sure that you are very much familiar with Cluster 4 on Digital Industry and Space as a key actually enablers to enhance industrial competitiveness in Europe and to actually address the twin green and digital transitions, where actually the European values and a human-centric approach is at the core of this cluster. So you would see many interesting elements in all of these clusters, while actually the work programs are currently being discussed with member states. And I would like just to take one last minute or two on the last slide, where actually I would like to very briefly speak to you about the support of the European Innovation Council to women innovators, because, and this is the core of also of the discussion and the heart of our policy, we know there are many talented innovators, entrepreneurs, researchers across Europe. They all pioneer game-changing innovations. You all pioneer game-changing innovations and research. And sadly, in Europe, there are very few of those innovators are women, at least in our funding. So I have introduced the numbers of 30% of researchers being women, but actually when we look at the private picture, the startups and the client of the European Innovation Council, I would say, only 16% of startups in Europe have at least one woman as co-founder or as founder, and only 6% actually of them have only women founders. So these numbers are absolutely, absolutely unsatisfactory in our opinion. So the European Innovation Council is firmly committed to address this, of course, with long-standing commitment to support women innovators through the prize, which so far has been the most successful instrument actually to support women in informatics, women in digital, women in tech, supporting actually established entrepreneurs as inspirational role models. And I think we all know that actually one of the key ingredients of attracting girls and women to informatics is actually to have those role models. But the European Innovation Council has also introduced a pilot action within its EAC accelerator instrument, where actually the colleagues have committed to assure that at least 25% of the excellent proposals invited to interviews under this EAC accelerator pilot should be proposals submitted by companies with a woman as a CEO or equivalent position. So this measure, initially when I heard 25%, I jumped out of my chair saying this is too little. No, I mean, we need to start little by little. And I think that this measure has already generated quite a lot of success and support. Actually, out of 147 companies invited to interviews last July, 42 had a women CEO as a equivalent. And actually, out of the 64 companies that were funded, 22 were actually led by women, which actually represents 34% already. So we clearly, this actually demonstrates the need for such a measure and the gap that this measure should fill in. And we see that there are more women-led companies attracted to our instrument. So the EAC is fairly committed to continue with this action and actually to come with some more targeted actions in Horizon Europe. And here is where I would stop actually. And I mean, one thing is to see what do we do, and with this, of course, this builds on also many interactions and co-creation workshops with you as stakeholders. But I think that, as Letizia said in the beginning, it would be very important that you all have your say, and I would be also very happy to receive your feedback on whether you think that this is the right approach, but also what is missing. I mean, it's very important for us to be à l'écoute, as we say in the Commission, and to really stay close to your expectations and be able, in a way, to address those with our support. So I would stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you, Mina. I would like everybody to unmute and to switch on your camera so we can give a small applause and thanks to Mina. Yes, so Dana, do you want to moderate the discussion maybe?
Well, let's see if you have some questions.
Yes, so there are some messages in the chat, but it would be also nice if the people could ask themselves, that we have a bit interaction, at least we hear your voices to make it a bit more lively. So Dana,
Please.
if you could ask the people to speak up.
Yes, please, please. Who wants to put the first question?
So, for example,
Don't be shy, please.
Maria, you had a positive feedback? Even
yes,
if it is
it's not a question. I just wanted to thank you. It's very encouraging to see that the European Commission is committed to mainstream gender equality, as you said, in Horizon Europe and through the other activities. So thank you.
So I have a question.
Please.
Yeah, can I?
Yes.
So yeah, just so you mentioned about the Horizon 2020, and did I understand well that all the proposals asking for the funding within the program do have to have somehow consider at least the issue of gender or the data, the different sex or gender data? Did I understand well that this all is required or is a recommendation? You are unmuted? Yeah.
Mina.
How do you like to proceed? Shall I respond now, or do
yes,
you? Okay,
please.
Okay. Well, of course, Christina, you go straight to the point. Indeed, actually, we go with a very strong approach. It's a political decision. We want that all public legal entities. So this would mean ministries, public organizations, universities which are public, research organizations. So everyone should have in place a gender equality plan or strategy as an eligibility criteria. So within the proposal and submission format, and this is actually happening on a self-declaration only once. So every institution will be invited to actually check whether they do have in place at least these 4 building blocks that we have discussed. So public strategy, resources, these are not necessarily financial, but there is just, we provide some indication of what the resources might be, but at least indication of dedicated resources in their strategy. So collection of data into a sex and gender disaggregated data, so some sort of a monitoring and evaluation, and then targeted support in terms of capacity building measures. This can be workshops, networks, or some positive affirmative measures. So we think about having some sort of a gratis transition period for the first year. And what we currently do is that actually with the projects we have in place, we actually deploy a massive campaign on helping institutions to set in place a gender equality plan. And we are actually setting in place what is to be called European Knowledge Center for Gender Equality in Research and Innovation. So this is a new action which we have introduced in our Science Sweden for Society work program. In the end of September, we have amended it so that we actually set in place some sort of a virtual competence center for gender equality, being able to provide targeted support to institutions to develop either a fully fledged strategy or to address one or other specific elements within their organizations. And we don't want organizations to have necessarily gender equality plan. The name is not an issue. Every organization would address this in the way they would address. I mean, this should fit their own strategies, and this should fit also the national context. What is important for us is that their strategy in place address at least these 4 building blocks, which are as well. These are not recommendations. This is a requirement.
Requirement. Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other question, Letizia or Tanka or Dietmeier?
Yes, thanks.
Letizia, please.
There is a quick one and another which is a little bit deeper, but maybe you have already answered partially. One thing is the fact that this thing about women CEO, how are we sure that these people are really the CEOs? I mean, I immediately thought, okay, maybe a lot of the husbands will put their wife as a CEO, and then they will govern anyway, or something like that. Is there any control on that the person is really the person who should be taken into consideration? It's really the head of the company, the woman that has been prized. Have you an experience on what was done last time in the thing that you mentioned? Because you know, it's always like this. Always, I'm Italian, you know, so I know that there are tricks, and so it's difficult to avoid them.
Well, I appreciate your question. I must say that I don't have a feedback of a similar situation, probably because I'm not within the EIC, but I can immediately ask for colleagues. There are two elements here. Of course, one thing is how do you actually register yourself, and one thing is to, I guess that there is also look at the status of the company. But there is another thing, the risk is always there. Also with the gender equality plans as an eligibility criteria. The risk is self-declaration, so an institution can come up and just say, yes, we do respect those 4 building blocks. We have them in our strategy. And we are not going systematically to check this, of course, but we do have some sort of gender audits. It's the same for the EIC. So, and these are completely random, and these are foreseen also for Horizon Europe, that at a certain point, at a random level, or with some sampling, you decide to go and check. So there is the risk. And of course, I think that the actions that we take go beyond. I mean, this is a political statement. We don't want to give money to institutions that do not respect gender equality principles, or we want to support in the EIC institutions that do have in place, I mean, that are actually have a women CEO or equivalent position in their company. The risk is there, of course, to trick it, but I think that out of this, the impact that one could generate is bigger, and we should take all those risks. And timing, of course, would correct that.
There are some answers in the chat that are that convince me a little bit more too. So I mean, I mean, at least the random controls. I think they are useful and probably sufficient, because you couldn't check everything, of course. The other thing is, but I think that you partially answered this already in the last in your last answer. Before me, is about what about other kinds of parity, not gender parity, but also others. Do we feel this difference in Europe? How do you feel in Europe with respect to the fact that maybe some areas of people coming from some areas of Europe are less valued when they look for a job, or maybe companies from other countries of Europe or company? Do you perceive that there is a problem, or and you, I mean, Europe is coping with that in general, or gender equality is really the most evident, and so for the moment it is the most let's say, for the thing that is most cured, taken care of, let's say?
Again, thank you very much, Letizia. There are many answers, so in different answers to your question, because it's not only one question. And we do perceive, of course, and I think that we all do perceive that there is a problem at different level on inequalities in Europe. And there are many different strategies. There are many different strategies that actually act in isolation. So when you ask us whether we cope with those issues, we do cope with disability, we do cope with minority, we do cope with equality, we do cope with LGBTI. Whether we do cope efficiently, this is another question.
Yeah, and it's always true for everything.
Indeed. And then this is why actually with the new commission, there is this strong emphasis on intersectionality. And intersectionality means we take all of these elements together without establishing a hierarchy, and we try to address a strategy where, while we do actually promote gender equality, we make sure that this is not at the detriment of disability or of refugees and minorities. So what we do, of course, we build on the experience of gender equality, because there is where we have most of the experience and where we have most success. The tricky issue here is that we don't want to look at gender equality as a vulnerable group. You know, so it's very difficult because we want to have a very positive narrative on this. That I mean, this is a right that we should have. I mean, but while we do promote gender equality, we have learned quite a lot also. And our next step is to introduce also these intersectional elements in our approach. For this, we are going to fund different projects, and this is also one of the commitments that we have in the European research area. Personally, like that, we actually, for instance, in our sector recently, we actually hired a person that is an expert on intersectionality to help us also develop this understanding. Otherwise, I think that the risk is there that we may miss something and that we don't do it at the right level. So Letizia, this is a great concern and a commitment that we actually, that's why we speak about equality, not so much about gender equality. I see Letizia, the moderator, is making a sign.
The other Letizia, yes, she's right. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mina, to Dana, to everybody. We have to go ahead. I would like to give the word now to session 2, and I think it's Line here who is sitting near to me, who will now take the floor and present the next session.
Perhaps may I mention very shortly, there are still very great comments in the chat. So if you have something to say, you can also write in the chat. Unfortunately, time is not sufficient to let everyone speak. But if you write there, the others can read, so you can still communicate this way.
Thank you, Mina. Thank you, Erika. Sorry. Yes. So, Line, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Letizia. So I've been given the honor of welcoming to session 2, which is called then From School to University. And we have 3 talks with questions and answers afterwards. And we're going through awareness and through education and ending with how to recruit to ICT. So I'd just like to give the word straight to Monica Landoni and her talk, Getting to Know What ICT Is and Can Do. Monica.
Sorry, I need to share my screen. Okay, share. Open. Let me see. Open. Yes. Okay, and now, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not now?
Is that still?
No?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, let me try again. So the desktop is fine. Share.
Yes.
Yes, now we see it. Thanks.
So happy. So now I'll go very fast. Okay, my name is Monica Landoni, and I'm going to tell you how here at the Faculty of Informatics, we are doing our best to help girls to understand more what ICT is and what ICT can do for them. So in particular, I'll tell you all about my project on design for raising awareness of stereotypes. I come from the child-computer interaction community, and I develop and evaluate tools for children to write, read, and search, but above all, to write stories. So I'm into this area of digital storytelling design. And when we go into schools and we speak with teachers and parents, that are all the good stakeholders we want to deal with and talk to, we did not experience any difference in reaction, engagement, or fun boys and girls would have with our tools and with our activities. But unfortunately, stereotypes are very alive and kicking, even with very young children. So a colleague of ours did this very simple study, asked children to draw a she scientist and a he scientist. And we got 2 very different portraits. The she scientist looks very much like a witch in a witchy kind of kitchen, while the he scientist is a bit mad, but has a white coat and has a nice lab to perform some science. So what can we do then about this? Well, we decided to look long and hard into the stories our children were making and looked into stereotypes that already emerged, but we are scientists, so we wanted some scientific evidence of that. So we designed some tools for identification and analysis of gender stereotype. We went ahead and designed prototypes to try and mitigate these stereotypes. And then I'll tell you something about our initial feedback. So we designed 5 lenses to look into how roles were divided among boys and girls, male and female characters, their agency, the embodiment, the personalities they were assigned, and the emotions they would communicate to readers. You see some samples of the drawings of our children, and you can see already some very different styles and ways to represent characters. We published our results 1 year ago, together with my very good colleague Elisa Rubegni, Antonella De Angeli, and Letizia, that is sitting there. But that was not enough. I decided we need to do something. These lenses are effective, they work, but they are a lot of work. You have to manually go and assess the roles, the agency, and so on. So I engaged a few of our smart students here in informatics to help me and use very fashionable machine learning techniques to classify characters in stories, in this case in Disney cartoons, and be able to, first of all, classify male and female, and then good and bad, good, big eyes, bad, small eyes, and see whether we can, in this way, automatically assign roles inside the stories. And then eventually we will move down to embodiment, personality, agency. For emotion, we are already using some tools. These projects proved a lot of fun, very effective in engaging girls in computer science, but also gave us some ways to go further with our study into applying these lenses to detect different type of stereotypes. We also did our usual users research at depth and produce a new prototype for the ideation part of the storytelling system. We did some games. We did a paper prototype of some games to engage children and break their mental models, so that at the end we had stories that somehow were different. There were not only princess and princes. The happy ending did not have a wedding as usual, and somehow the gender stereotypes were mitigated. So research-wise, we are happy with this line of research. We have some measures to understand we are going the right direction. We have a lot of direction to take involving machine learning and design at large, so we are happy with that. And it seemed to work, but it takes time. These children we were working were 8 to 10 years old. By the time they come to university, time has passed, so we don't know. In the meantime, what do? We engage in school guidance for girls in Ticino. And so we embrace the fact that stereotypes have a basis of truth. So let's face it, it's more likely for a boy in Ticino to come to informatics than for a girl. So for a day, we swap that and we invite only girls to our faculty. We show them it's a nice environment, we don't eat girls, we are very friendly, we do exciting things, so maybe they will come back. The same we do with high school. We go to high school on tech days and show how much fun we have with our work. And also we do the role play. So we go and sit down with a nice cup of tea with girls that are looking into a new career and tell them about how much fun is our career. So maybe they want to follow us. And very importantly, we keep in the loop teachers and parents. So this is what we do in few words. And now we have our lovely Bara Buhnova to tell us more about what they do.
Ah, wonderful. I think we first take questions. It was wonderful. Thank you very much. So let's manage the question first. So I think you can put your question in the chat if you have a question. Yeah, there's just Letizia Tanka saying that indeed informatics should be studied since primary school, like math. Do you want to add something to it, Letizia?
Yeah, the problem is to find teachers that are able to bring passion and interesting projects to primary school. But that's an area we want to work, of course.
Yeah, actually, the point is exactly not only teachers, but also deciding really what you want to teach. I mean, we're not going to teach coding and that's it. It's nice to present informatics as a fascinating, as fascinating as mathematics. Not all people like mathematics, but the people who like math, they started liking it since primary school. So, for instance, when you teach how to add numbers or to multiply numbers, you could highlight the fact that these are algorithms, no? Things like those, and that would be very, very useful. But forming, we have to decide what has to be taught, and at the same time form the teachers, of course. Yeah, I agree.
There's a question from Erika. So Erika, I can ask you a question. We do not hear you.
You are on mute, Erika.
Sorry. Now it works?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Very, very nice talk. I asked myself, when you detect that these stories have such an important impact to the development regarding stereotypes, would it make sense to check all the school material for stereotyping and try to remove that? So that would be perhaps a project for a long-term important impact to remove from the stories. I mean, there are also a lot of fairy tales and these types in the books that in the schools are used for teaching reading and so on.
Yes, remember the stereotypes play an important role in education. So we need some stereotypes for children to feel safe and understand what are the options they have. But indeed, one of the projects we want to do is to simply take all the fairy tales and run stereotype analysis. But what we did with this little sample, you saw Snow White, we took the oldest Disney movie, Snow White, then we took Aladdin, and then we took Brave. And we looked across how stereotypes evolved. And reassuringly so, the impression we have that Walt Disney is getting more sensitive about this issue is true. Our lenses confirmed that there is less stereotypes in Brave than in Aladdin, than in Snow White. So something is changing very, very slowly, and we can play on that. The most exciting result for me of our work is that we can detect, but also we can, with design, help mitigate it. So that's the most exciting part, but it takes a long time. But you're right, Erika, I think such a project of checking in textbooks the presence of gender stereotype or any other stereotype, because we also looked into how people with special abilities are portrayed. And there is very, very little about that. And it's always something that is not permanent. It's something temporary in children's literature. So there is so much we can do with these lenses, but stereotypes have a function, so they need to be there, but also need to be identified and dealt with. Thank you.
Yeah, I think maybe we switch. I continue. There would be much more actually questions. We'll see if we have time after all the talks. Then we'll be happy to take the questions, I guess. So yeah, let me continue. As Monica actually said, that I will be sharing with you some insights on the education itself after we do something with the stereotypes or build the initial interest. Like, what can we do and how can we just put the education in place so that we do not lose girls over time. So just for you to understand the context, I'm coming from the Czech Republic, and the Czech Republic, the situation is quite worrying. So we have less than 10% of women among the ICT professionals, and the situation is not getting much better. Fortunately, at universities, the percentage of girls is rising, but still it's not so high that we would be happy about that. So we are trying to do something about it. That's why besides me being a professor at the university in 2014, I co-founded an organization that is trying to change the things. The organization is called Czechitas, and it's actually a very lovely initiative. It has grown enormously since 2014. So it started with a simple idea to bring tech closer to girls and girls closer to tech. So really like do coding courses for girls. Back then when we started, it was mainly for girls of like our age, like around 25 years old. And what we often saw with them is that they told us that they actually always felt attracted to computer science, but they really never get on this path. And so like understanding why is this happening became one of those like interesting insights that I would be happy to share, because that's what we should do in pedagogy to prevent these things from happening. Because the thing is not that girls would not be interested, it's more than we are losing them over the education process because of unnecessary frustrations that they need to face. So actually with Czechitas, we started with really like popularization activities. We did many courses, started like 1 day, Saturday courses, and then grew into like 3 months courses, like really education programs. We like still till today, most of our participants are like young adults who are typically like finished with their education, sometimes even university education, but then like found out that for the future career and position in the job market, it's actually good to come back to the moment where they were attracted to computer science and pick up some computer science competencies, learn some coding, etc., to actually improve their position on the job market and maybe even change career. But after we ran these courses and activities, we found out that they work really nicely with kids as well. So we then changed to little children and included little children, boys and girls, and started working with teachers, with school headmasters, creating like programs, really talking to policymakers in the Czech Republic and Ministry of Education, etc. So we actually need some big community to make this running. So like all the teachers are volunteers who are working at as tech professionals. It's over 500 teachers at the moment, and our community is over 20,000 women who are just like getting some education with us into like different styles of coding, data science, security, whatever kind of software engineering you can think about, and so we need some bigger community of companies as well. At the moment we have 100 companies that are involved in this activity, and so also running these programs for really diversity awareness sessions with companies that we are now doing. It became quite large, so we attracted a big community and started picking very interesting insights about what we can do to make girls, actually to keep the interest of girls into computer science, because often they are attracted to these things when they are little, but they just lose this interest over time. So we actually created this like a huge community, and just to tell you a little bit about the kinds of events we are running, and then I will switch to some insights for the education that is good for us to know about. So the types of events and programs we are doing, it's like from one-day workshops, which are typically Saturday, to long-term courses, which are typically 3 months, like once a week, meeting once a week, into going into upskilling academies. These are really like huge. These upskilling academies, for example, if you want to become a data scientist, no matter what your age is, you can just enroll in the program, and after 3 months, we can pair you with a company that might give you a job offer as a data scientist, as a very junior data scientist, but still you can start. And we have very beautiful experience with girls who went through these programs, who typically have graduated already from some other university, for example. They actually then get on a very like steep career growth, because they bring many interesting competencies from their other disciplines, and then when they bring it to the like new field of tech, they are typically doing really well. So we do hackathons, coding clubs, internships. Then for like children and high school kids, we run different like popularization programs that are typically 1 week long, like full week, like summer schools. And I will tell you a little bit about the summer school for high school girls. We have summer camps for kids. We have different programs for schools and teachers. When there are events like EU Code Week, for example, or Hour of Code, we run these all over the country because we already have teams in 8 cities. We are like, as an organization, we have 50 people like employed, like full-time working for this initiative. So it's very huge at the moment. Regarding the summer school for high school girls, this is a very beautiful thing because we see how we really change the mindset of girls who are coming for the week. During the week we do education, so it's really like each day we have different aim, different thing we want to teach, like web development, Arduino, etc. So each day has a purpose. But then there is like in the evening some time where we just hang out with some people from companies, share ask questions and share insights about what it means to work in tech, and as well what it means to study university. So, you know, to kind of like remove that barrier that this is something where like, you know, not meant for girls. So like changing this, and they talk to many inspirational people. So in this picture, it's Satya Nadella from Microsoft. These summer schools actually very nice and beautiful. We can talk about them more specifically, or you can contact me anytime if you want to learn more about them. What is, I would say, like interesting is that we really like jump into many different topics, and still like these girls have enormous capacity to just, you know, like understand it all. And even if we go from topic to topic, it's just incredible, you know, like that at the end they do a hackathon and they develop something by themselves in teams, and they are able to pick the knowledge so well if they are encouraged and told that they can do it. Then it's really beautiful. So just a few lessons that I think are important for the education itself. So over time, we actually identify that, at least in the context of Czech Republic, you can see things like a leaky pipeline concept, where we are losing girls over time due to numerous reasons. And these reasons are actually changing over time. So it's very interesting to actually get some insights on that. If you look at that, then what we see is that, like, first of all, there is a problem with access, and not really access to a computer, but access to high quality education, supportive teacher, and encouragement of their environment. This is actually linked to the second thing, that the stereotypes that are often in present are not that dangerous in the sense that the girls would have stereotypes about like ICT, but the thing that their closest environment has stereotypes about ICT and discourages them from pursuing this career. It's typically their family, their friends that often just want the best for them, and then discourage them from this path, not seeing it as a you know, like way to make them to lead them to a future happy career. Then, like, when these girls get over it and they actually start learning coding and learning IT, the next hole in the pipeline they hit is the self-efficacy. They often believe that only super smart people are eligible to get career in there, and so they often like self-select away from it because they're afraid that they are not that super smart. When they get over this hole in the leaky pipeline, the next thing that hits is the sense of belonging. So they actually find themselves in a classroom where there are very few girls. So still it's like surrounded by boys, and they start being like describing that they are not sure if this is the kind of environment they would be really thriving in for the rest of their life. And if they really get over this one as well and get into tech and get a career in tech, then what we hear often is a problem with them not feeling valued in that environment. And that's actually for two different reasons. So one is that they feel like defensive culture, that they need to prove that they are enough, that they are good enough. And the second is that sometimes they are bringing competencies to the table that are seen as like second-class citizen at the table. And just to illustrate this is just for illustration. What we like often see, for example, is that girls who we are educating with Czechitas, they are often bringing like different mindset, not that like much target oriented, like I have a problem, I go for a solution, but more like perspective, really like integrating things. And what we see with those individuals who have this kind of like more like perspective approach to problem solving is that for them that they have different learning curve. So what's happening for people who really need to like understand the context, understand the factors, and only then start doing something is that they have like this kind of different learning curve when they are like approaching, for example, coding knowledge. So they start very slow, they need their time at the beginning, and only after some time they really like go and start like quickly really building things and bringing value. But it's like initial time for these people who are like more perspective mindset oriented, more like integrators, more generalists, we usually like lose them during the education, because those kids who are not able in the classroom to be able to develop their first program fast and really, you know, like do it, are typically seen as like, okay, maybe they are weaker or they are not that good fit for it. And then what's happening is that we are losing these kids. And sadly enough, we are losing many girls with these kinds of kids that are more like perspective oriented. So there are different insights. We could be talking long about them, but I want to get to the end of the talk, and we can come to that in the questions. What we did, we ran multiple studies. We even wrote some papers. So I'll be very happy to send some of these works to anybody. Just leave me in a personal message or chat your contact, and I can send you some papers, really understanding what are the strategies, like what we can do, what are the elements of like gender sensitive pedagogy through which we can actually eliminate this like mistakes we are making when we are really not giving maybe space to some individuals to like catch up and thrive in the classroom. Specifically on one topic, we have written a paper which is like on this last slide, which is called Girl-Friendly Computer Science Classroom, Czechitas Experience Report. You can find this one. I can send a link. And this is specifically just talking about like how we can create safe environment for novice learners, because what's often happening with girls in the classroom is that girls are later technology adopters, and there are multiple reasons for that. One reason was described by Monica, but other reasons are also described by neuroscience, saying that girls have different ways of interacting with technology, and these like different ways actually make them adapt technology a little later. So when they just find themselves in a classroom, they are typically surrounded by people who are experienced learners already, while they are novice learners. And that makes it very difficult for these girls to just pick up and start feeling successful. And this missing feeling of success of girls in the classroom when they are starting something is very difficult, especially difficult for girls, because girls, unfortunately, are typically used for good grades. And like feeling in a classroom that they are not really seeing that they would be able to make good grades because they are really worse than others that they find themselves in a classroom with, is making them demotivated. So really like finding different ways to pedagogy so that we pick on their strengths, we help them shine and feel successful in the environment is very important. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. And you can ask maybe one question and then we need to go to another talk. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think we have little time because we have Line ready for her presentation. But if you have one question, maybe through the chat for Bara, that would be great.
Yeah, oh yeah, I can answer the questions in the chat, and let's go to Line.
Thank you so much, Bara.
You have to yes.
Yeah. Share screen. So,
Yes.
there's, can you, I just have to find this one. Yeah, that's it. Hi everyone, thank you, Bara. Yes, I'll have a few minutes left now to talk about the Girl Project ADA at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU. I'm going to say a few words about how we've been working on recruiting more girls to the ICT studies. So I got a few minutes left and I'll be saying, I want to share 3 things that recruiting events for more girls in ICT work. We have seen very good results here at NTNU, and that it's important to collaborate and that this is also good for the guys. A little bit of background. The Girl Project ADA was started at NTNU 23 years ago, and the goal is to graduate more females in ICT, but we work on both recruiting more students into to start at the study programs, but also to retain and prevent dropouts throughout the year. So we work from before they apply to university until they graduate and start proceeding with a PhD or start working in the private sector. We have seen that what we've done is working. We have 5-folded increase in 15 years from 2005 to 2020. We got from 7% to 35% female share in the ICT students, average number in the study programs of computer science, communication technology, cybernetics, and electronic system design. One of the main recruiting events that we do is called the Technology Week for Girls. It's something that we do every year. I mean, when we don't have the pandemic, we send invitations. We send invitations to all the girls in the country that goes to high school and that major in mathematics. So every single girl in the country receive this information so they can apply to be part of a technology week at NTNU. And then we pick out 450 of these girls that go for the last year and the second last year at the high school. And then we fly them or transport them to NTNU for a 3-day technology week. During these 3 days, we have presentations of the different study programs. We have workshops linked to the different study programs. We found that it's very important that they do a hands-on experience and that they get the sort of feeling that, oh, I can do this. We also find that it's very important that they don't only meet sort of the professors and the staff and the grown-ups, but also to have their personal meetings with role models, to meet other female students that study ICT. And that's part of breaking down the stereotypes that it's only for guys. We've seen that this is working. 90% of the participants are actually ending up applying for a science or technology study at NTNU afterwards. I can't move. Oh, there you go. Sorry. So, but I also said that, as we were saying, we don't only work on recruiting them into the study programs, but also with how it is to be a student, so that the experience of being a student is better. We work a lot with social media, both through like to recruit for our study programs. We also have a special welcome day 2 days before the enrollment day to make sure that you know more students when you come here as a new student. The first year of university, we spend a lot of time with like getting to know each other activities and lunches and dinners. And now this year we also had a mentoring program where older students look after younger students. We also run code hubs, which is like coding clubs that are run by different companies every time, but we administer it. We also have artificial intelligence events to promote that we need more females in artificial intelligence. So in general, social networking and networking with company representatives, and as also as a way of motivating students to the study programs. One thing is the recruiting job that we can do at NTNU, but the most important thing is that happy students are also recruiting more students. So we have to do this, let the students do a lot of the recruiting job. I've added this little video. It lasts for less than a minute. We made it for the Girl Project Allah's 20th birthday. So it sums up a little bit about what we're doing. As the video showed, we have a lot of companies that we cooperate with, and these are very important for us, not only because of the financial funding that they contribute to the project, but also because they provide role models. They provide role models that can give workshops and give presentations during recruiting events. They provide content on stage, and they also provide a very important voice to say that here are the jobs waiting for you at the other end when things are being too theoretically and boring throughout your study programs. And they also have the voice that say, we need you. These are companies that are working for more females among their technical staff. And I also want to mention for you the Nordic 5 Tech, the little screenshot that I did on the right there. There are the Nordic countries, technological university in Norway and Sweden, Finland and Denmark that cooperate with or share experiences how we work on widen recruitment, how we work on recruiting more girls to tech. And this is very valuable also in the time of now the pandemic, and how do we do good recruitment digitally the way we can do it now. As the last thing, I said I would like to mention how this is good for the guys. And we have seen that increasing share of women has a positive effect on the retainment of male students. It's research that's about to be published, and I'm sorry I couldn't say that it was published before today's workshop, but it's around the corner. We have gone through the last 20 years at the university, 17 5-year-long integrated Master of Science and Technology studies. And what we've found is that when the female share increases with 10 percentage points, not only does the dropout rate by the female students go down, but the dropout rate of the male students go down with as much as 8 percentage points. And this is important when we're trying to negotiate to get more funding to do this sort of target job of recruiting more girls to ICT. Because what we found a significant correlation between the probability of men's dropout and the share of female students in all study programs. So with that, I would like to say thank you, and it's 1 minute left for questions.
So maybe you want to share the screen, then we can see everyone in the with the cameras.
How do I do that new share?
Yep, unshare or stop sharing.
So if I can add a comment from my side before the coffee break, I am very happy that you already are talking about papers that are in the pipeline. because it means that we are already progressing toward our cost action, because we have promised to write papers. So this is very encouraging. And in 1 minute we will have the break. But yeah, if there is, I think there is time for one question, and Monica and Bara and Mina, or final word.
Erika says, I have a question if there's time.
Yes, thank you. It is really very nice initiative, but it costs also a lot of resources. So how do you finance that long term?
The Girl Project all at NTNU has been financed from 3 different sources, and one part is the funding from the private companies, and the other funding is from gender equality funding essentially for the university, and also the faculty contributes with funding here. But what we've seen is that this sort of job has contributed with the dropout rate has gone down. So of the students that start, more of them graduate. So the money comes back to the university. You get money for every student that you graduate. So it makes financial sense in the long run. And at the moment, we also have more than 30 private companies that have contacted us the last couple of years that want to contribute with more money, that want to contribute with more to the project. As in Norway, you can see that most of these companies all have now some sort of strategy saying that they have to increase the number or the percentage share of females among their staff before 2025 or between 20 until 2030 or whatever. So they have, private companies have funding for these sort of jobs as well.
And do you have private permanent staff who is devoted only to this project?
Yeah, I work as the project leader, and I spend more than half my time running, almost probably 100% of my time running this project. And in addition to that, you have 20 students that work part-time, that has a 15% position in the project that are paid student work.
So Enrico has the hand raised.
Yes, I wanted to ask Line whether, I mean, the data about the reducing the dropout of male is very interesting. Yeah. I want to know whether you also investigated any difference in their attitude. I mean, you know that usually when there are too many men, it develops this boy attitude to the work or to any activity you are doing. So I would expect that having more women would also change the way the boys develop project
Of course, when you have more women into the study programs, it widens the sort of stereotype of what a computer science student is. So it's easier for the guys to feel at home as well. And I forgot to mention it in the presentation, but the first page there had a picture of students working in the project. And last year there were 2 male students working there as well. And they, so every year there's male students applying to work for the Girl Project ALA. And when they're asked, so why would you like to work for more girls in your class or at uni at these study programs, and say, no, I'm not working for girls. I'm working for better technical solutions. I'm working for a better environment during my study years. It's good for everyone. So our experience at the university is that the male students are very supportive of this project. And also we had some French documentary makers here a couple of weeks ago, and they wanted to invite male cybernetic students and about the project, and they asked, what do you think about it? And the guys were all like, we think it's great. They also want more girls here.
Yeah, thanks.